My name is Susi. I'm a student of Leisure and Events Management, specialized on live music and dance events. And today I would like to introduce to you three important theories regarding music events which are related to the core topics sustainability, logistical planning, and crowd safety. Sustainability affects all of us, and every single one of us needs to do their part to contribute to a more sustainable future, no matter in which area of life. So first I want to explain the material flow analysis to you, a model which is connected to the topic of sustainability when it comes to organizing an event. I decided to choose this model because when I dived deeper into the topic of sustainability during the production and logistics business unit of my studies, especially this model caught my attention. But what is the material flow analysis and how is it connected to live music and dance events? So at every event, a broad variety of resources is used for different purposes. So for example, energy for sound and light, water for drinking purposes and toilets, drinks at the bar, steel for the production of stages and stands, food at the food court, and many more. But where do the different resources come from and what happens with them after the event? So before we can use the material flow analysis, we first use the so-called Flux tool. The Flux tool is an online program where, as an event organization, I can fill in all the different resources which are used at the event, where they come from, the amount, and which amount will be recycled afterwards. The result of the Flux tool is then the material flow analysis. So the material flow analysis contains four different categories. The first category at the left side is called input. It shows all the different resources which are used at the event, where they come from, and the amount which is used. So for example, with the usage of energy, we can divide between green energy and battery energy. Drinks contains all the different drinks that are offered at the event and how many liters of each drink the festival offers. We can also list, for example, the different consumption materials and their amount there, such as aluminium, glass from alcohol bottles, organic compostable, plastic from drinks in plastic bottles, and many more. Other different resources we can also list are water for drinking purposes and toilets, steel, wood, and last but not least, the food which is sold at the food courts at the festival. So first we'll list all the different resources that are used at the event. The second category basically shows the event in which the resources which we just listed flow. The third category is called monoflows. It shows where the resources flow after the usage and the consumption. So for example, the amount of CO2 which is produced due to energy use, the amount of wastewater, or the amount of glass and plastic waste. It also shows which materials are reused during the event. So for example, if a festival uses reusable tableware at the food court, then these resources do not go into waste. And last but not least, the fourth category is called processed. It shows where the different resources from monoflows go. So for example, deposit plastic bottles from drinks can be recycled by Statiegeld Nederland, or wastewater can be cleared by Waternet, which is a water clearing company in the Netherlands. So to summarize everything, the material flow analysis shows the amount of resources which are used and where they come from, the event for which they are used, where they flow after they are consumed, and how they will be processed afterwards. It is a useful tool to measure how sustainable the event is organized, and by analyzing the data in this model, it gives the opportunity to make changes in using or processing resources and therefore organizing the event more sustainable next time. Now I want to explain the relationship diagram to you, a model which is used when it comes to the logistical planning of an event. The reason why I chose this model is because it taught me how to relate the different main points of logistical planning of an event to each other and how to use this information when it comes to the location design of an event. So at every event you have different main points from a logistical point of view. The stages, front of house, the entrance, food courts, bars, first aid, emergency exits, and so on. And when organizing an event, it is not possible to just randomly place them somewhere at the location, it is important that there is a system and a structure behind it when it comes to creating the logistical plan. And here, the relationship diagram can help. So the diagram has got the form of a triangle or a little arrow that turns to the right side. So first we'll list all the different main points which I already mentioned before. The stages, front of house, entrance, food courts, toilets, emergency exits, and so on. Then, within this model, we link every main point with each other to find out the relationship between them. So, to define the relationship between the different main points, we use letters and numbers for each relationship. The letters are used for defining the value. A stands for absolutely necessary, E stands for very important, I stands for important, O stands for neutral, U stands for not important, and X stands for to be avoided. The numbers are used for the so-called code. So 1 stands for few at the stage, 2 stands for safety, 3 stands for sound quality, 4 stands for flow of people, 5 stands for space, 6 for service, and 7 for hygiene. So now that we have got the all different main points, letters and numbers, we can start defining the relationships between them. So, for example, the relationship between emergency exits and bars gets an X4, which means to be avoided because of the flow of people. In practice, that means from a logistical point of view, I need to try avoiding placing the emergency exit right next to the bar because in case of an emergency, there can be a too high flow of people, so it takes more time for people to escape the situation. Another example, the relationship between waste bins and coin sales receives an O, which means neutral. So in practice, that means that it's not necessary to place them right next to each other, but that it also won't result in negative consequences if I do or if I do not place them next to each other. Another example would be the stage and the front of house. This relation gets an A1, which means absolutely necessary because of the view at the stage. The stage and the front of house are closely connected to each other, so in practice, that means that I need to make sure that the front of house is placed close to the stage. And when the relationship diagram is completely filled in, we can start with the logistical planning. So first it is essential to color all the relationships which got an A to immediately see which main points are the most important ones to place closely to each other. When it comes to creating the logistical plan, usually we also start with placing these because the relationship between them is absolutely necessary. So to summarize everything, the relationship diagram is a useful tool when it comes to creating the logistical plan of an event, to define the relationships between the different main points of the event in order to create the logistical plan mindful, structured, and also safe for all the people that are involved in the event. The third model I want to explain to you is the dim ice model, a theory from the topic crowd safety which is used in the organizational process of a music event. The reason why I decided to choose this model is because after creating the logistical plan of an event, it is very useful for analyzing and influencing crowd behavior related to the created logistical plan. So the model consists of 6 parameters, 3 horizontal ones and 3 vertical ones. The 3 horizontal parameters are the so-called phases of crowd behavior, which are ingress, circulation, and egress. So ingress is the amount and flow of crowds during the entering phase of the event. Circulation defines the behavior and movement of a crowd when people already entered the event terrain. And egress is the amount and flow of crowds during the departure phase of the event. These 3 parameters, ingress, circulation, and egress, can be controlled by the event organization and influenced by the 3 vertical parameters in the model, which are design, information, and management. So design explains how space is used, so basically the capacity of the event terrain and the visitor flow rates. Information shows how are people informed. So for example, if there are enough signs that guide the festival visitors to the emergency exits or the first aid. And aside from that, also communication through social media, for example, should be taken into account in this parameter. Management highlights the course of action the event organization undertakes when an incident happens and what are the procedures then which I can undertake to influence the crowd. It also shows which situations in which situations I do inform the police and security, for example. So now that I explained all 6 parameters of the model, we can now put them all together in the model and relate them to each other. So the dim-ice model can be used in 2 modes, a normal situation at the event and an emergency mode. In a normal situation, for example, if I put the parameters circulation and design together, I can find out and analyze if there is enough space for the calculated visitor capacity to move over the entire festival terrain. If I put the same parameters, circulation and design, together in the emergency mode, for example, I can analyze if there is also enough space for the visitors to freely move in case of an emergency, and if there are enough emergency exits so that the visitors could leave the festival terrain. So as you can see, the outcome can differ depending on if it is applied for a normal situation at the event or for an emergency situation. But after creating a logistical plan for an event, it is essential to apply this model for both situations, so normal and emergency. So to summarize everything, the dim-ice model is a useful model to apply for after creating the logistical plan of an event, to analyze and influence crowd behavior in a normal and an emergency situation, therefore to make sure that the affected event and its logistical planning is safe for all attendees.